Yeah, I think I got disconnected.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
The video paused in between.
Okay, so how much of the video could you see?
Ma'am, after
Azure.
After
platform as
Windows
a service.
Azure. Okay, okay, okay.
To meet every
Are you able to see the screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I think up to 2 minutes you had seen it.
Yes, ma'am. Service models of cloud computing.
However, the organization needs to allocate additional staff to maintain and manage the infrastructure and the application. Microsoft has proposed remote desktops and virtual machines to Microsoft Windows Azure as an ES offering. The PaaS model provides organizations with a platform or a runtime environment to create and deploy applications. Here, the organization is only responsible for the development, maintenance, and management of the applications. Microsoft provides the Windows Azure platform as a PaaS offering. The SaaS model provides organizations with ready-to-use applications that use a combination of cloud-based compute and storage services. Microsoft provides various online services, such as Microsoft Business Productivity Online Suite, BPOS, and Microsoft Dynamics CRM Online as a SaaS offering. To understand how cloud computing can help an organization extend its IT capabilities, consider Wide World Importers, a company that manufactures beauty products. Occasionally, the research department has to store and process a large amount of data. Consequently, the company is looking for a cost-effective compute and storage solution. Additionally, Wide World Importers has a group of scientists situated at different geographical locations. The geographical barrier affects research, requiring a better collaboration solution. In addition, the company is planning to develop a cost-effective data mining application to collect visitor data during its week-long worldwide annual beauty pageant. Cloud computing provides Wide World Importers with an efficient and cost-effective solution to their problems. Wide World Importers can subscribe for additional compute and storage services offered by Windows Azure on a pay-per-use basis to move all of its statistical data analysis and storage to Windows Azure. By doing so, they can invest more on research. Wide World Importers can use BPOS, Microsoft Live Meeting, and Microsoft SharePoint Online for efficient collaboration. For design, development, and testing of the data mining application, the company can use the Windows Azure platform to focus on software evaluation and reduce the time and cost required for preparation of the development and testing environment.
Okay, did you see this video?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, there's one more.
Cloud computing basics.
Or are you able to see the video?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
The advancement of technology encompassing networks, storage, and processing power led to epitomic computing. In this century, it's called cloud computing, or commonly referred to as cloud. What is cloud computing?
Cloud computing is a paradigm that allows on-demand network access to shared computing resources, a model for managing, storing, and processing data online via the internet. Some cloud computing characteristics include on-demand service, you use it when you need it. Network access, using internet as a medium. Shared resources, resources are pulled together and used by multiple clients. Scalability, allows elasticity of resources. Three delivery models of cloud computing, SaaS, PaaS, and IaaS. Cloud computing offers different services based on three delivery models. When arranged in a pyramid form, they follow the order of SaaS, PaaS, and IaaS. What is SaaS? SaaS, or Software as a Service. It is a service that offers on-demand pay-per-use of application software to users. Unlike licensed bought programs, this service is platform independent, and you don't need to install the software on your PC. The cloud runs a single instance of the software and makes it available for multiple end users. This makes cloud computing cheap. All the computing resources responsible for delivering SaaS are entirely managed by the vendor. This service is accessible via a web browser or lightweight client applications. Who uses SaaS? End customers are frequent users of SaaS. Example products are services of SaaS. Popular SaaS providers offer the following.
Ma'am, it's not audible.
Work from any place.
Audible now?
Excellent for collaborative working.
Yes, ma'am.
Vendor provides modest software tools. Allows for multi-tenancy. Cons: portability and browser issues. Internet performance may dictate overall performance. Compliance restrictions. What is PaaS? PaaS, or Platform as a Service. This service is mainly a development environment and is made up of a programming language execution environment, an operating system, a web server, and a database. All of this encapsulates the environment where users can build, compile, and run their programs without worrying of the underlying infrastructure. In this model, you manage data and the application resources. All other resources are managed by the vendor. Who uses PaaS? This is a domain for developers. Example products and services of PaaS. Cloud providers have the following as the PaaS products and services: Amazon Web Services, Elastic Beanstalk, Google App Engine, Windows Azure Heroku, and Force.com. Pros: cost-effective, rapid development. It's scalable. Faster market for developers. Easy deployment of web applications. Private or public deployment is possible. Cons: developers are limited to providers, languages, and tools. Migration issues, such as the risk of vendor lock-in. What is IaaS? IaaS, or Infrastructure as a Service. This service offers the computing architecture and infrastructure. That is, it offers all computing resources but in a virtual environment so that multiple users can access them. These resources include data storage, virtualization, servers, and networking. Most vendors are responsible for managing the above four resources. If you will use this service, you will be responsible for handling other resources such as applications, data, runtime, and middleware. Who uses IaaS? IaaS is mainly for sysadmins. Example products and services of IaaS. They include Amazon EC2, GoGrid, and Rackspace.com. Pros: the cloud provides the infrastructure. Enhanced scalability, dynamic workloads are supported. IaaS is flexible. Cons: security issues, network and service delays. Examples of companies that use cloud computing. Amazon's AWS, or Amazon Web Services. When it comes to companies using cloud computing, AWS takes the lead. This cloud computing company offers IaaS and PaaS services to its customers. It's popular for its Elastic Compute Cloud, EC2, among other services such as Elastic Beanstalk, Simple Storage Service, S3, and Relational Database Service, or RDS. Apart from the complete suite of cloud computing, it offers other cloud-related services including Internet of Things, IoT, cloud security, and mobile services. iCloud. This cloud from Apple is majorly for Apple products. It allows you to back up and store all your multimedia and other documents online. This content is then seamlessly integrated onto all your devices or apps in case you access it from them. Microsoft Azure. This cloud is used and offered by Microsoft. It offers IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS for its enterprise software and developer tools. If you have ever used Office 365 products, then you have used SaaS. Google Cloud. The Google Cloud Platform is a universal cloud for Google's vast ecosystem and also for other products such as Microsoft Office. It allows collaboration, storage of data, and also other services offered by its cloud computing suite. IBM Smart Cloud. Using private, public, and hybrid deployment models, IBM Smart Cloud provides a full range of IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS cloud computing services to businesses. Using pay-as-you-go model, this cloud generates revenue for IBM.
All right, so we saw 2 videos, okay? Whatever we have been discussing, Siddharth, switch off your video. Okay, whatever we have been discussing for last few classes, I think you could see it in a summary there. Okay, what we have not discussed are the companies who provide cloud services. That is going to be there as a part of the next 2-3 chapters. Major corporations which provide cloud services are Amazon, Microsoft, IBM, Google, and many more. Okay, or Apple's iCloud is there. So we are going to learn more about these services. What are these services and which companies are providing them? What are the features of these services that we are going to learn in the remaining chapters. So in this second chapter that we were learning, we tried to concentrate on infrastructure, that is whatever are the components required for a cloud environment, that is client, server, data centers, and network. More about that we have been learning. Okay, so today we will not learn anything new as such, but I will show you one PowerPoint presentation. I just hope it's open. So I want to share this presentation with you, which will give you an idea about what you should be doing as a part of your project. I will do one more orientation during which I will take one example and do actual analysis and design and show you. Actually, I didn't have that presentation with me. I don't know, mostly I have given it to Vaishali madam. So I'll take it from her and I will take one more orientation in which DFD and ER diagrams, how to draw them. I will teach you in the class, okay? But just quickly, we will go through this presentation, which will give you an idea about what your project is all about, why you should be doing a project development as a part of your 6th semester BCA, okay? Okay, so some of you might be thinking, why project development? Do you have an idea as to why project development? Why are you doing project development in the 6th semester?
Ma'am, it just showcases that all the time, like all the semesters, whatever we have learned, now we are able to put everything together and develop.
Yes. So right from first semester, you have been learning some programming languages, you have been learning some methodologies, you have learned what is procedure-oriented programming, object-oriented programming, you learned software engineering, testing. So basically, you all are going to become software engineers. Maybe you'll get a BCA degree, but you all are going to become software engineers very in near future. So what is required as a part of your, the 3 years of degree program that you do is you get some practical knowledge, and whatever you have learned in last 6 semesters, you apply those skills, analytical skills, designing skills, coding skills, and you understand the nuances of software development, small nitty gritties that are there as a part of software development. Because what has happened till last 5 semesters, you have done only practical, small practical sessions in the lab, where you, whatever you learned in the programming language, you have written small programs to learn the logic and implement the logic. But when we talk about software, it's a full-fledged working program, or a full-fledged working software. So that doesn't contain one small program to calculate factorial, or it doesn't contain a very small program to add two numbers. What you have been learning is logic. That logic you will implement now. So to understand the small things related to software development, you people are doing a project. Now, what should you do as a part of your project? This you have already done. I'm late in telling you this, but you do all these things. You choose a topic of interest, then define the problem, analyze it, design it, write the code, test it, and implement it. The waterfall model comes in front of your eyes. When you're choosing a topic, what should you choose? Many of you had this problem about choosing. I don't know if some of you are still left out deciding to choose a problem. Okay. So what we are going to do when you're going to choose a problem is, you don't have to go to some software training institute and ask them to give you a topic. Very simple. You look all around, you see day-to-day activities, find out what problems are faced, check whether these activities are, done manually. If necessary, you can automate them. If necessary, you can make them intelligent applications. In the sense, till now, the kind of applications that were developed were just to automate manual transactions into automated transactions, to make them into a computerized transaction. But we don't want only transactional projects. We want those projects to be intelligent also. So you can add a little bit of artificial intelligence so that manual interaction is minimum, and most of the things which are done manually can be done completely, can be automated. Okay. So there are a lot of areas from which you can choose your topic. Have a look at all these areas which I have tried to put here on the screen. Now, this is just a small list. This list can go on and on. Okay. So have a look at it. You can develop software for children. You can develop entertainment software. You can develop industrial software. You can develop a business software or astrology software. You can develop widgets for your desktop. Editors you can develop, like Word. Okay. So there are so many things, so many areas. Government software you can develop, that is the transactions that are happening in government offices. For automating them, you can develop software. Educational software you can develop, not software used in education institutions. I'm talking about educational software. There's a difference. Educational software is a training software. Like, for example, you are developing a software for nursery kids, where the software will try to replace a teacher. Okay, whatever the nursery kid needs to learn in the nursery classes, for that you can develop a software. All right. Okay. There are so many more areas from which you can choose. You can choose software for legal system, music software, video games, word processor. Now, after looking at this list, you start feeling, no, there are so many areas on which we could have worked. Okay, again, this list is very small. You can increase this list. Now, as in our college, as a part of in-house development, a software was developed by some of the faculty in the college itself, that was called as eDiary. Now, why I had taken this example, because this was an in-house software. It was designed for the faculty of Gupta College of Commerce, and it is still being used by staff. Now, what this eDiary is, it's a software which allows the staff members to enter a teaching plan every day. That is, every day what the teacher has taught in the class, that we can store, because generally we used to write it in a diary that has been made as an e-diary. And whenever teachers in the college want to apply for leaves, they can do it through this particular software. So everyday portion covered and leaves of employees is managed through this software. Okay. So generally, when you're doing your software development, generally what you people lack, what you people don't do, you start directly with coding. Please don't do it. Most of you must have even developed some amount of code. But always, when you're working on software development, make it a point to follow this. Define the problem first. You try to get a good understanding of what the problem is. So before spending time trying to solve a programming problem, it is essential that you understand the problem. So for that, you need to read a lot, ask a lot of questions, clarify the things which you're not sure of, and try to jot down the problem in your own words. If possible, you can produce an input output chart also, what goes into the system and what comes out of the system. What are the values that will be input and what will come out. Okay. Then the next thing that you do is analysis, understand the existing system, gather requirements. During this phase, you can make use of some fact finding techniques. To gather the requirements, you can do interviews of the staff for whom you are developing the software. You can interview the people who are going to use the software. You can develop questionnaires and you can circulate it and gather their requirements. You can also gather requirements through observation. Just sit and see how things are working. For example, if you're developing an industrial software, go visit that industry, just sit in one place and see how operations are happening there, how the people are working. The observation, sitting in one place and observing all the processes will help you to automate them better. So on-site visits can be useful. And then you make a list of what are the drawbacks in the existing system, where the existing system is failing, where it is taking time, or where the efforts are less. Okay. Then during analysis only, what you do is you describe your existing system, you draw DFD. The other day also I was telling you, you have to draw data flow diagram, 3 levels: context level, top level, and detail level. Once you have drawn the data flow diagram, you can highlight the drawbacks that are there in the existing system. Okay. Then comes your design part. So all of you think that only coding means software development. It is not like that. You need to understand the problem, analyze it, design it, and then go for solving the problem with your code. Okay. So what do you do during design? You understand the proposed system, have a clear cut idea about what the system you are proposing. You can adopt object oriented design, or you can have a regular if at all procedure oriented design you want to follow, that you can do. And generally we follow a top down approach. That is, we draw a DFD, then we go for modular decomposition, then we draw the ER diagram. This all of you have to do as a part of your project. Draw a DFD, go for modular decomposition, then go for ER diagram. This is a must in your documentation of your project. Okay. So as a part of DFD, you are going to analyze the system, draw context level, top level, and detail level DFD. Once your DFD is ready, then you can go for modular decomposition. Try to identify the main modules that are there. And if at all each module is very complicated, you can still divide it, subdivide it into sub-modules. That is called as modular decomposition. Generally, we draw a chart. In that chart, we show the main modules, and we also show the hierarchy there, indicating the sub-modules of the main module. After that, we draw an entity relationship diagram, indicating which are the main entities, how are they related to each other, and what are their attributes. After that, we go for the process of normalization. Once we have done normalization, then the remaining part will start. So as a part of design, there are two design that you do after top level design. What you do is back-end design and front-end design. Back-end design, back-end in the sense where your data is going to be stored. Generally, data will be stored in a DBMS. So you're going to have tables in which you will store the data. So table design and normalizing the tables so that you can remove the redundancy in the tables. And front-end design means user interface design, what GUI elements you will place, algorithm design. You can write down, instead of directly coding, you can write down algorithm, that is steps to execute a particular module, to execute write the code for a particular module. So don't all of a sudden start coding. Make it a point to follow this routine. Okay. After design, what comes is called as coding. Once you have coded using the language that you want, then you can test it and also later on implement it. Okay, so I have given you a very brief idea about what you should be doing. Most of you are, all of you enter your attendance quickly. Most of you are doing your DFT. So what I'll do is maybe in the next week, I'll take one example, one project title I will take, and we will try to analyze it, and we will draw DFD for that. Okay, so once we draw DFD for, if I give you one example, I think you people will be able to do it for your own projects also. All right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, we will stop here and we will continue in the next class.